All right. What's going on, everybody? It is Monday. It's Mike and Wendy. You are in the Marriage Shop. Welcome.
I'm trying to decide if I can hear you here or if I just hear you here. So
it doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. So
Okay.
it seems like it always feels like it's been a long time since we were last here, but in fact, we were here last Monday, and we appreciate all of you that were able to be here with us. We what were we talking about last week? Do you
See,
remember?
I don't. Last week is
We were
so
talking
far in the
about the
rearview
honeydew
mirror. The
list.
honeydew list. I
Yes,
had too many things on the list. I forgot what I
yeah,
was talking about
yeah. So
last
you
week.
guys really gave us some really great comments, some things to think about, and we enjoyed talking about it. So hopefully you had a good conversation about the honey-do list and were maybe able to accomplish or cross some things off of your honey-do list.
I know I did. I mean, after you all made me feel all guilty and stuff.
Hmm.
So for slacking on the honeydew list, but I must say that I have my reasons. Anywho, but I'm getting some things done. I think
Did you do anything after?
yes. It's called honeydew setup. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows about that.
Ah,
It's like setting up to do the. It's the thing before the thing. It's preliminary. It's creating space to do the stuff
okay.
on the list. I'm sure I did something though. I remember. Oh, I did. I even put up like in the thing. I did not only like the primary honeydew, but I did the secondary. That hey, since you got that thing out, that ladder out, you might as well do. Remember the
Oh,
laundry
in the
room
laundry
stuff?
room.
Yeah. But
Yes.
our laundry room is actually it's labeled so that in the event you're lost in our home, you know where you ended up.
That's funny.
It's,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So
I did
yeah,
that.
you did. Yeah, and that was good. I appreciated that. And
Yeah,
you even said, yeah, this is what they're talking about when you're already doing something and then you add something. Yeah, that's what
that's
you
what that
said.
was.
So anyway, so we're glad you guys are back with us this week, and we're really excited. We've been talking about addressing this topic for some time, so we have been teasing it. We've talked about it. We've come at it from different angles, but tonight we're excited to have some of our good friends here with us. So what are we talking about tonight?
Well, I mean, before we get to what we're talking about tonight,
Yes,
we need to I need to show y'all something. Okay, so tonight we mentioned these a while back. The black on black marriage shop special
the
edition.
blackout.
Blackout, right? So y'all better get that. So if you need the marriage shop link store link, we got you. But
Yeah.
yeah, you need to
So
be rocking these this summer.
right, but the link is on our page. So if you
Mm-hmm.
go to our Facebook page, you can click on that link, and that takes you to the marriage shop. So if you want
The
any
shop.
to take a look at any of the marriage shop merchandise, our merch that we have for sale, I was just having a conversation about that today,
Mm-hmm.
about the mugs and the books and the T-shirts. But anyway, so click on that link on the marriage shop at the
It's a
marriage shop page on Facebook and on Instagram.
it's a marriage shop.
Hmm.
So yeah, but I'm going to put a direct link so you don't even have. I want to reduce your clicks. Want it to be easy for you. Just boom, click it, go.
Yes.
So
So we have
we're
the
gonna drop that in
blackout
there.
tees and we have the washout tees, which are white on white. So it just depends. If you say, "Oh, it's the summertime, it's too hot for black on
We
black,"
got you.
we have an alternative for you.
We got you. So and by the way, before we get into this thing, you didn't talk about the weather at all today.
I didn't. It's hot. That's the weather. So here in Evans, it was close to what they say felt like 100 degrees today. We were in the low to mid 90s, but it was pretty hot out there. And I understand that tropical storm Danny is heading this way, so we're supposed to have some rain coming. Not that I'm
Yeah,
your weather person for Evans, Georgia, but if you happen to be in Evans, that's what the weather is doing. But it
but
was a hot day out there.
well, and that's funny because I do not need to be your weather person because I'm like Danny who, and who invited it? I had no idea.
Mm.
I guess I got to get out more, get into the news.
Yeah, well,
But
Jacqueline Jones, thanks for joining
hey,
us. We're always
here we
glad when
go.
you can drop into the shop, and we're excited about getting into tonight's discussion. So, is it time to talk about what we're talking about
I
tonight?
suppose so.
Okay.
And if you saw that preview, it's bold, blended, and blessed. We're talking about blended families tonight, blended marriages, because we know depending on the statistic you take, the year you look at, about overall quarter or so on average of marriages have a couple, one or more were married before. And so that is a significant number. And about, numbers tell us about 4 in 10 have families with children involved as well. And so you're bringing together all these different realities and creating something new. And so that is a huge issue. And I don't know that we've talked about it as much in the Marriage Shop, perhaps as we could have, but that was then. So tonight we're getting into it tonight, talking about blended families with some good friends of ours.
Yeah. So if you know someone, if you're in a blended family, we want to make sure that you guys are on tonight. So if you know somebody that is in a blended family and maybe having some challenges, you might want to go ahead and tag them and bring them in. Share this, start your own watch parties. But we're going to get into a good conversation about it.
Okay. So you want to bring them in?
Yep. Bring them in.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
So are you gonna handle this introduction?
I think we both will. So we're excited to bring in our good friends, London and Cheryl Dubois. I think I pronounced that correctly. So if I didn't, please correct me. But we've been good friends with them. We met at church. Cheryl and I, and Mike too. I guess you came along a little later. Used to work together years ago, and so just excited about everything that they represent. I wrote on Facebook that they lead the marriage ministry at Oak Grove Baptist Church here in Evans, Georgia, and they are just a dynamic team. So we're just excited to have them here. You have anything you want to add to their intro?
No, we are we love this couple, and London and I have served together in a number of capacities, singing, working with men, whole 9 yards, and so it's just great to have you all on here finally. So let's get into it.
Yeah. And Gerald Wilson, we're glad you're here. We're always glad when you and Michelle Moore Wilson happen to drop in. So glad to see you. Okay, so sorry about that. Go ahead, guys. Introduce yourselves.
No, I know Cheryl she was jumping in saying we're glad to be here. It's fun, to be on the show this evening, actually. Just a little bit about ourselves anyway. We're London and Cheryl Dubois, as you said. We are the blended family. Between us, we have 5 children. Ranging age right now from 17 to 33. So they did go back a while. But however, we met in 2013. Actually, we met at church. We were actually attending the same church, and for a year, a couple of years, and I never saw her until, because we were going through our own things at that time, and we had a lot of noise in our lives at that time. So I think it was just blinding us and we weren't able to see each other. But then after I cleared out things in my life, and I don't know about Cheryl, I hadn't cleared out things in her life, her daughter was in one of our Bible study classes. And I remember her daughter came back in church that morning. I looked back and I saw her sitting next to Cheryl. And of course I said, that's my way in. Yeah, I'm gonna use the baby. And so I talked to them about, I said she was a great student in class. And so we just got to talking. So later we talked, and the next time we spoke, we were in Bible study one evening, and we started talking about her retirement in GRTC. And then a couple of days later, we talked on the phone, and we realized at that time that our lives had been so noisy that this time became quiet. Yes. This conversation became quiet. And I think for the both of us, we recognized it, because I just said to her, I said, wow, it just really seems nice and quiet talking with you.
It was a smooth conversation. Yeah. It just felt easy when we talked.
And she said the same thing. And after that, I think Cheryl texted me that night and asked me, was I a talker or a texter? And of course, I always want to talk. And it was just a basic conversation, but it ended up being the best conversations that we could have. And it just grew from there. And we just decided, once we saw there was a spark there, and it seems like we were interested in each other, and things got more serious. Of course, Cheryl said she loved her brother first and everything. It's just working out. I was working out. I took another opportunity where somebody was messing with her daughter. I stood up for the daughter, so that I always got to her, to the kids. But we were after that, when we got more serious, and we started talking about just growing in the relationship.
Yeah.
And we decided then and there that it would be a relationship of abstinence and of celibacy. So because we did have such, I think, troubled marriages, and we needed to be able to engage in this relationship through communication and conflict resolution, and then and remove any intimacy, well, the sexual part of physical intimacy, out of the way, so that we could concentrate on our relationship.
And we wanted to be able to hear God first. We wanted to make sure that nothing else would hinder us from hearing what God wanted for us. So that's why we wanted to abstain from anything that would, oh, we're going to fight, well, let's have makeup sex. No, we didn't want to do that. We wanted to hear God and what he had to say, if this relationship was going to work or not.
Yeah, that's good, because we've talked about that before. You touched on a number of things that we've discussed. We've talked about makeup sex. We've talked about how sex can complicate relationships, especially if it's premarital sex. So I'm glad that you guys are bringing those things out. It just kind of adds a little bit of credibility to some of the conversations that we've had. And you also touched on how important communication is. So thank you for sharing that. I mean, it sounds like a true love story.
Yeah.
Yeah, we in love.
So that's really good. I mean, and because I think, and as we're going along, if you all have any comments for London and Cheryl, if you have any questions in particular, drop those in the chat, and we'll have them address those if you have them. So and we'll spotlight it and all that. So please do that. And so you all's is a really, I mean, it's a really cool love story, and to kind of watch you all flow and move it's really cool to watch, right? Because you all don't mind like loving out loud, and I think that's really so important. And as you are, well, let's look at the numbers, right? There's a lot of blended families out there, but what we know, at least what the statistics say, is that with each subsequent marriage, there's less likelihood of that marriage surviving. So people who've been married twice, then 3 and 4, etc. There's kind of this downward trend. But I tell people that you can't live your life by statistics, right? Statistics are their trends, their population trends. It doesn't mean that you have, a 60% chance of your marriage failing. What it means is that maybe there's 6% out there, but for you, yours is going to make it or it's not. That's just the bottom line. And so yours is making it. And so we think that there's a lot of things that you're doing that, I mean, it's not by mistake, right? I mean, there's some things that you're doing that are really helping that. And so we want to kind of chat about a few of those things. And so if you don't mind, we're going to ask you a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Okay. And I just wanted to add on that when you said about the 60% or so, we just want to say that our commitment from the beginning was to ensure God was there. And that's why I think we made sure no matter what, he was our foundation.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for sharing that. Gloria Hamilton says, "Hey, y'all," and Jacqueline Jones said, "Oh, especially when you said you're in love." Robin Odell says it's very admirable what you all have shared, and then KC is saying, "What's up?"
Oh yeah, that's Virginia Beach is checking in this evening.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jacqueline, that's Cheryl's
my sister. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Hey, sis.
Now where is Jacqueline, by the way?
She's in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Okay. East Coast is representing tonight.
Yes.
Step up, East Coast. Yes. I hear you.
So one of the things that you both mentioned in your own ways, London, you mentioned about how at peace and calm and where you were in terms of silencing some of the noise that that was happening in both of your lives, a lot of the things that had occurred. And then Cheryl, you kind of mentioned a little bit about some of the distractions and all of the things that kind of compete, and so in terms of prioritizing each other, right, in your relationship and in your marriage, How are you all able? How were you? Were you able to do that from the beginning? Can you share with us how you put each other first?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, in the beginning, in a blended family, it's kind of hard to say that you're going to just think of you and him only, because again, you have children or grown children, and so it's not that easy to say it's just you and I, and those are the only two people you have to think about. You have to think about the kids' feelings, and for us, example, and I'm just going to talk about us. I had two girls, young girls at the time, that I had to think about, and he had three children that he had to think about, two boys and a daughter, albeit they were a little older. It's still a mix. And you had external family that's thinking, what are you doing, Dayton? You just had something that was critical going on. So how are you going to be doing this? We don't know this person, as he could be a killer or a murderer. You know, they have all different opinions. So you have to massage that delicately when you're talking about, now you're trying to put some time so you all can date. And so what we did, we didn't truly date. We had couch dating where we sat on the couch and talked more so than anything. And in the mornings, we read a verse and we talked about it during lunch. We had very few date nights by ourselves because, one, I was still apprehensive of leaving my children alone, and he understood that. And I mean, that was the breadth of being able to understand where we were and had been, and how he was deciding to come in to our wounded and brokenness, and understanding that. And the same with all of that for him. And so even now, we don't go out much. It's just how we've been, and we just take it delicately when we're doing things with the girls. So now that we're about to have a empty nest, we're kind of excited about that.
Yeah, that is awesome. Thanks for that. Um, I want to follow up on that just a bit, because it sounds like two of you came into this. You said that God was in it, right? And it sounds like you both kind of came into it, and you were in a place in your life where you recognized what was going to be necessary to maybe make this work. And so I'm just wondering how you get to that place.
Well, we got to that place. I mean, communication was the key with us. I mean, I think Cheryl knew more about me in 1 year than my previous marriage in the entire years we were together. Is because we discussed every detail of what was going to happen, what's happening now in our lives, what possibly could happen. I mean, we were everywhere in the conversation. So I think that was kind of our way to continue to recognize how and continue to pray about our situation, and how I was going to have to give and I was going to have to change. Cheryl would have to give and have to change, but not change who we are, but some of the circumstances and how we kind of respond to certain things. And that, I think, because we would talk each situation through, it worked out in the end, because we were able to kind of get to the answer without causing too much conflict or confusion with it, because we kept everything simple with how we were going to attack each situation.
We knew what we didn't want. That was the baseline, because we've been through the hard, difficult, bad marriage. And I'm reluctant to say bad, but broken marriage. So we now knew how we wanted it to be. So that's where we started from there, with God's help.
That's good. A lot of couples that we hear from, and even people that maybe are no longer in relationships but do have children are challenged with balancing that, right? And so there is the protecting your children or the introducing your children or inviting other people into your existing relationship with your children,
Mhm.
or how to navigate new relationships that involve bringing your children along or introducing that person to your family. So I love how you all described how you carefully did that and navigated that with each other. And really, Cheryl, when you said you wanted to hear from God, right? You guys
Mhm.
wanted to make sure that you weren't being distracted by anything else, but foundationally you were putting God first. I think that speaks and says a lot about the two of you in particular.
And that's Wendy, that's how we do it now, because that's our foundation. And let's be clear, we're not perfect at any means. We still have we still have situations where um, the entire family is still working on being blended. We're not there. We're not at all, but we're growing. I think statistically it says you have 7 years to get them to merge. Well, we've been in it for 6.5 and we're still not there. And I don't think 7 will probably be our magic number or anything, but we're still going through it and we're still putting God in it to do that for us.
But Cheryl was saying something. What we found with the blending of the siblings, is my personality towards my kids was different than Cheryl and her kids. So what I did was I let the boys talk with Cheryl, and her soft approach to them actually created the relationship.
Mhm.
They were able to start expressing themselves more because I was like this, every conversation was like this with the boys. So Cheryl brought in this, hey, go ahead and tell me how you feel. She got all touchy and feeling with them. So they got to talking, and it really opened them up. My relationship actually with the boys is greater than it has ever been because Cheryl, she included herself in that part. Now the girl has a little resistance to it because Cheryl being another woman.
Mhm.
So we're still working on that one. That's still a work. But the boys are there. But it's the opposite with Cheryl and the girls. She was like this with her girls, and I'm the soft guy, So now they open up and they will tell me everything. Some things I don't even want to hear from a girl, but they still say everything. So we found that let the other parent take on the situation.
And it took time to get to that point to it, but we noticed that it works well for us.
Yeah, you all touched on some things because Wendy and I, we speak with our family life weekend to remember, and part of that experience is a section for blended couples, and they also have like a retreat, an annual retreat every year. I don't know how COVID impacted that, but we'll find that we'll put that information up when that event comes up. But there are a number of things that they talk about in terms of how to manage that, right? How do you remain unified in parenting, and how do you do it in a way that helps to bring the family together versus create more tension and more division? It's a delicate dance because when you're bringing people from different lives, I mean, those things have tentacles, right? You are a part of a lot of people's lives, and so when you bring that family together, you're bringing all that together. And so it doesn't surprise me that it takes some time, but there's some things that they talk about in that particular in among many other things, but in that session, they talk about several things that to consider in terms of bringing the family together. They talk about the pace of trying to make things happen and not rushing it, because people have a tendency, right? I've met this person. I love this person. You're going to love them too. And everybody's going to love them. And let's just all get along like now. That just is not realistic. I think y'all agree, right? So pace is important. Patience is important, obviously. Just allowing things to occur, and I think it is absolute genius, right? Because I think ultimately the things that allow us to connect with people is all around these relationships that we create. So allowing your sons, London, to be able to just sit down and talk with Cheryl Well, because if that happens, then perhaps maybe some of the things that you see transcend, right? And they're like, wow, yeah, she's pretty cool, right? And so you begin to create these opportunities for things like that to happen without really forcing it. Um,
And
Go
I
ahead.
think also one of the things is now Lisa being older, Lisa was able to talk to the boys too to see the difference because like the boys thought, oh, my dad is so rigid and everything. And Lisa's like, what? No, he's just a nice, they're like, you talk about my dad, and and so they give a different opinion. And so we're like, we're not sure we like y'all kids talking anymore, but it's so great because that's the other half that the blended family bring. Lisa always wanted a big brother. Well, conceptually, that's not going to happen because you're the first. And so it brought on the big brother she always wanted. And
Yeah.
so that helped too when they got to talking. And so, yes, patience and having everyone talk. And then they met the external family. And dealing with the external family to say, are they okay? Or is that person going to be good to my family? That was the, because we still have ex-wives to deal with, and that's a dynamic that's a little bit harder than normal. We don't have prayerfully an ex-husband to tackle with so much, but an ex-wife can bring on a whole nother painful side if you allow it. So
yeah. Well, I'm glad you bring that up, and I do want to go there next a little bit. Um, but before we do, I just wanted to convey that Gloria is all team Dubois. She's saying y'all still in it to win it. Justice Smith, we're really glad you're able to
What's
catch
going
us
on?
live. We've been following you guys with the Super Smith Adventures and
It's getting crazy.
your recent work on your own individual journey. So we're glad that you could join us at this time. And so there were a couple of things. I mean, you guys, you have my brain working over here, but I wanted to just kind of stop for a second to put this visual out there, right? Because hearing about a blended family, it seems like that's a recent description of the integration of two families. We generationally, it was always just kind of stepchildren, step father, stepmother, and step families. And so now, we really the idea and concept of a blended family really gives us the right kind of visual, right? So when you're like making a cake, for example, and you're putting in all the ingredients, when you put those things in there first, is kind of a mess. And then when you start to agitate it and blend it, so I would say, based on what you described, Cheryl, it's like hand mixing versus actually getting a blender and blending all of that stuff together. You're hand mixing it, and it takes time. And as you're going through that process, it can get uglier than it was when everything was separated out. And even once everything starts to mix together and take on similar characteristics, it still can be kind of lumpy and bumpy for a while. Like you may never get the lumps out of it.
You are describing a poorly made pot of grits or cream of wheat. That's what I'm.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is when you envision that, that's kind of what's occurring over time. It's not a real quick put it in there, have a KitchenAid, blend it all. It becomes one big thing that looks homogeneous, and we're ready to go. It's a process.
No, it is a process, and I wonder if y'all could just talk about maybe even one example, if you have one, of going from something that looked one way in the beginning, but over time it's kind of transformed and it looks a lot different now, because there are some things that you just can't get around. You mentioned that 7 years, Cheryl, and so maybe it's 7, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 8, whatever it is. There's some things, that time just has to pass. You can't force the issue, right? And just like a well-made fill in the blank, a cake, a steak, whatever.
Mhm.
Sometimes you just need
Mhm.
time. And so can you talk about anything that's evolved over time that wouldn't have evolved unless you allowed that time to pass?
Go ahead. No, just
Okay, good. Okay, so let's take for example with I'll give you two examples. The first one being like my family, because I had a divorce that had some trauma with it, and you know most divorces are very much. Well, most of them have some type of heartbreak and everything, but mine came with some delicate trauma with the children and all of that. But because of that, it made the entire external family reluctant to see anyone else in the family. And albeit it was 2 years since I had divorced and then met London, it did not matter. The family was very apprehensive. We had a the day that they met you, we had a dinner, and London was there, and it was like an inquisition. And he just took it, bless his heart. They were there, and they were like, "Okay, where are you from? Who are you with? And why did your name change? And what is going on with you? And do you love Jesus?" And it was it was something. I mean, it was family, it was cousins, nieces, aunt, uncle, everybody was at the table. And Lisa was even like, "Wow, I'm never bringing a guy home." Because that's how much they were serious about, we need to know who's coming and trying to get into this family at this time, because these weren't the questions we asked before, but this. And even after that, you could still see they were okay, but they still needed time. He still needed to warm up and give the family time to really get to know him and just learn him a little bit more. And then I'll say with
Now they love me, right, Jacqueline?
We'll let you know what she says.
I know, right? And then like with our daughter, she's I think it's just taking time because of the fact that it's harder with her being reserved and wanting London just right there. And so when the girls say dad, she feels that was reserved for only her. And so it's a mixture that has to come to a point where, oh, now I have to share this. I'm a girl dad. Now I have to share this girl dad feeling. And that's taking a little while to get through. And in its time, it's going to happen. It's not something that we can push and say, call her. She want to talk to you. I talk to her and she will respectfully talk back, but it has to be at her time.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
So yeah, we got to show y'all this. So, so
yes. That's Ashley. They were at the table. Okay.
and what it says is that as Carol's niece, we were extremely overprotective, but we made it. I love you guys. Right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, they were there like that.
So
oh yeah, look at Jackie, brother-in-law.
I love you. I was like, who is Bill? What's the story? Okay, I get
brother-in-law.
it. But yeah, so that's awesome. I mean, because and it's important to consider, right? The family that some people may consider overprotective, but Cheryl, you mentioned it. You mentioned like a really traumatic, very difficult experience, and the family stands around helpless. Like, how can I help? And so a lot of times, people feel like they missed it the first time, but the second time around, They're like, we're not
Right.
missing anything this time. And
Mhm.
so I think it's important. Like you can't force that. What do? Run in there and say, hey, love this person. We good. No, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it is going through the process. And I think
Yes.
even getting through the process of like, withstanding the Inquisition and then coming back, I think that says a
Yeah.
lot too about the
Bless his
individual who's
heart.
willing to do that from a humble place. Because you
Yes.
could have, apparently this didn't happen because a lot of people would have been like, man, I'm a grown man, and you're not gonna just sit here, and they would have just walked out in their feelings.
Right.
Why didn't you do that,
Mhm.
Manju?
And he stayed. Bless his heart. He did.
it took courage. I think her mother was the more aggressive one out of all. She was really, I mean, the moment I think I told her dad, I said, I do love your daughter, and I'm going to ask her to marry me one day. And her mother overheard that anyway. And
Mm.
she said to me, I think she said, you better not be crazy and hurt my daughter. And that's all I'm going to tell you. You better not be crazy.
I'm telling you, and she's just with that type of tone, you would have to get to know that. And they were just really going to ensure that. And so blended families come with a lot in the beginning and still now.
She even said that after the wedding,
Right,
they was recording
right.
her at the
So
end.
he doesn't just stop.
They
Yeah.
said, what do you think about your new son-in-law? She said, oh, we had our talk. You
Better not be crazy.
That's awesome.
And so at the wedding, we didn't want a big number or anything like that. We only wanted the ones that was going to help nurture our marriage.
That's a good point.
Mhm.
Now, I'm going to tell you why that's a good point is I had difference. I was a little different coming into the relationship with the way I like to hear things, or when children are talking and what they're going to say and not say. Cheryl was a little different with that. And so when we got married, we chose people in our lives that if we have difficulties, this is who we call.
That's right.
And so I had a couple of my friends that I knew if I talked to them, it wouldn't be, oh man, I wouldn't take that. Don't do this thing. You don't need to do that. Man up or whatever. It would be from praying about it and using scripture to actually resolve these issues that I may be facing with things going on with Cheryl and the family. So we were very careful on who we decided was going to be in our wedding, so that when we have our conflicts with blended family, which we did, this is who I will call. We have a problem with Cheryl and I, this is who I will call.
Mhm.
So we were very careful to do that because we knew that bringing a blended family together, we were going to have issues.
Mhm.
We wanted to have trusting people in our lives to go through to help us resolve conflicts as well.
And we thank y'all because we invited y'all to the wedding and everything, and y'all are one of the ones that are in our group because we didn't need the onlookers or anything like that. We needed prayerful, God-fearing, power-believing people that wanted to fight for marriages and fight for the things that we believed in. And so that's what we wanted from the start. We were totally believing that's what we wanted for the marriage.
Yeah, I think that's so key because when you talk about all of the things that can challenge a marriage in general, then you add in the additional things that you're bringing, external influences, extended families, all those things that compound it for a blended marriage. We kind of mentioned it. I said we'd spend a little time there, and so I don't want to miss an opportunity because what a lot of people envision and what a lot of people express in terms of their challenges in blended relationships is the ex-wife, or the baby mama, or whatever it is in your relationship. And so, the horror stories that you hear relate to, the former spouse bad talking the former spouse with the children and planting negative seeds and things like that. So it only paints a one-sided picture that some of us are familiar with. But that's just one challenge and one facet of that challenge, right? And so we don't necessarily have to get into what it was for you guys because we want, that's your private life. We don't want to go there tonight. But in terms of
unless you want to go.
Well, we'll say this. We'll just say that I think our most difficult things that we have is other people. That's why it says, let no one put us under, because again, it's other people that brings it into the marriage. And that's all of our disagreements and everything like that. There was a time where I believe where London has just really, and I'll just say it, London has, their communication with his ex-wife is not very good. But I was having a better communication with her at one time.
Mhm.
And I could talk to her on the phone better than he could. Because again, the trust was gone with them too. She trusted me more than talking to him. Get that? But then it went sour. Everything went sour at one point or the other, and then all things were gone. But at one point, like we said, it evolves and shifts and rolls and stuff like that. But at one point, it was a better communication with me and her than with him. And I think that's what navigates this roller coaster of blended more so than anything else. But it's just not just the ex-wife. It was also, we had there was unfinished tides that we had in our marriage, and that's a key point that I would just suggest that people in a blended family or in marriages that are coming together separate prior to marriages, because that can bring on a lot of unnecessary conflict. And you want to touch on that?
Yeah, and it did. I think because Cheryl, what she was saying anyway, she did. My ex-wife had, I don't know, she had her conversation with Cheryl, and it felt as though, the trusting part was there, because she even said to me once on the phone, she said, I don't know where you found that woman, but she's the best thing I think that ever happened to you. And I was thinking, wow, what did you say to her?
Yes.
What did you say to her? I mean, on my phone, when it rings, it's got pray first. That's how I identify. I know how the conversation is going to go, So,
That's good.
So I have to know that when the phone rings, because we have grandchildren and everything, which, that's another problem all on its own, because it does the bad talking, it rubs off on family members, because even grandchildren, it does that. But we did have property together, and that was a thing. And Cheryl and I like to be open about certain things. Our lives isn't, if we hide behind it, other folks won't know how to deal with it. So we did have property together, and I wanted to, because it was like a covenant between me and my ex-wife, and I know it bothered Cheryl at once, and we had an opportunity. I was going to sell the property, but my oldest son had left his children behind, and it was 4 grandchildren that she was raising on her own.
Pause. He didn't just, I'm going to just go to bat for him. He didn't leave them behind. There's some things that he needs to get together, because his wife had passed. And so there was some things that he just couldn't take care of. Okay. So he's dealing with a lot. Okay.
We see it a little differently, but still, we always see it a little differently. But
as you can see, I take care. I take up for my son. That's what.
And she does a great job at it, and that's why he's really drawn to her. But it did leave some property behind where I could have sold it and it would have been gone. Now, this took a lot for Cheryl to do this, and I do lift her up a lot. And I always say, I try to stay in agreement with her always, because I say, God put this woman in my life, and I think to go against her, it would destroy us. So some decisions that she'll make, I will just go along with it and agree to it, knowing that this is a good decision. And in the end, I'll be thankful for making that decision and going along with Cheryl, because she wanted them to stay in the property. And I wanted the property gone, because I didn't want to have no more ties. That was still an attachment that I didn't want. And Cheryl had to do a lot in order to.
So in other words, we pay for a property that we don't live in, but I'm gonna pay for it because our grandkids live in it. And that's what we're saying in point blank English. Sometimes you do things for the betterment of the family versus what you may see as good.
Don't make me sound like the bad guy.
You're
Oh,
not. I
that's
told
good.
you.
That's good.
Listen,
And
let me-
I love the way that you
Yeah.
two kind of resolve that real time. I mean, you know, what a testament to your relationship, Cheryl, with your son. I mean, you know, in the way that you express that, there's no question that he is your son.
Yes.
And I think that, you know, people sometimes are challenged with even that. So there is navigating the new relationship, new marriage and that relationship. And then there is navigating the relationship with the children. Often those two things are the way that you're split in a blended marriage. And so I love the way you two are describing that.
Absolutely. And so I want to, because our time is like passing really quickly. But
Oh,
Brian
sorry.
McNeil dropped in the chat a word that was on my mind. And since I saw it, I'm going to say it. There's two words that actually come to mind for me. I just want y'all to speak on it when you hear them: humility and sacrifice. Talk about those in the context of our conversation tonight.
You want to do first?
Humility. With humility, I think it would be more in line with me. And Cheryl has taught me a lot in this relationship. So I'm not taking credit for most of it because my way of thinking was totally different. But I think being in this blended family and having, you know, especially having an ex-wife and being able to communicate, is that I really drew back and took responsibility and blame or whatever it was required to try to keep a cordial relationship going. And I did that, and I do that with a lot of things that seem to be where normally I would respond differently. I just learned to just step back and not pay too much attention to certain things, and always be kind. Whether I'm getting the worst of the worst from my ex, I give her the best of the best that I can. Sometimes I'm feeling good about doing it. Sometimes it's a struggle to do it. But however, I always try to reduce myself to be a better person towards her and other situations that may go on.
And I think also with sacrifice, there's a lot of sacrifice that we have to do, but I don't look at it more so of sacrifice when we look at blended families as far as what the kids are concerned, because it's truly not about us when we look at the entire relationship on how a marriage is supposed to look. We're supposed to be the image of God. And so when we're sacrificing, we're doing that just like God asked us to do. And so when London is having a situation, because I will tell you, and I'm gonna tell on him, when he first started talking to his ex-wife on the phone, I was like, man, who you talking to like that? You know, he wasn't cursing at her, but I'm like, dang, that's not you. And I had to tell him, that's not you. That's not who I know and who I love. And so so it just had to, and I could have been like, yeah, you tell her, go ahead, you know, but that's not who we are. And so that's the same thing with me and him. When I get mad at Lisa and I'm like, because that's the only one that's out of the house as far as Amber's still in here, and he does refereeing between those two too. But when I get mad at Lisa and I'm like, I'm done, you know, and Lisa decides now she'll call me every day. But then when she gets mad at me, she'll call London. And he's like, no, you might as well call your mom because you've been calling her all this time. So he will do that and make sure that we don't see, oh, now she's on my side, so I'll take care of her. So it's one of those things that we just make sure that we put the other person first. We don't take it as far as us. We sacrifice us and me to make sure we both win in that. So if he had kept on listening to Lisa, yeah, it would have been like, oh yeah, I'm dad of the year. But then it would have sacrificed us being together. So we make sure that doesn't happen.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you know, the word, the instructions for husbands. So love your wife as Christ loves the church, as he loved the church, and he gave himself up for her. You know, so that he could present her without spot or wrinkle, right? And so the sacrifice is the key. And we've said this a lot, but why not? It's always true. So I'll say it again. Sacrifice is the key, and it requires humility to do that. Like London mentioned, like, I want to, maybe there's something I want to say and a way I want to say it, but I recognize that will be detrimental to my relationship. Even though this isn't necessarily directly my relationship, this is not my marriage here. I'm like handling this other piece of business, but the two of y'all are one. It's all like
Yes.
you
Yes.
two together, right? And so what it requires, and a lot of times, this whole idea of offering grace and sacrifice and forgiveness, humility, we struggle with that because a lot of times we feel like we have the right to defend, the right to make a point, the right to get back if we've been got, all those things. Those things are just inconsistent with how God would have us to handle situations.
Absolutely.
Right. And so I think those things come to light even more so, managing all the things that you have to manage in order to really have this relationship that you're building to blossom. And I think y'all are doing an amazing job with that.
I noticed that my uncle was watching. He's Christopher Curry.
Oh, okay. So we can't always see everybody that's on, but hey, Uncle Christopher Curry, we're glad you're here.
Yeah, go ahead. Throw something in the chat.
Yes,
Uncle Christopher.
yes.
We call him Uncle Boot. And so that's
Uncle Boot, like boot, like the
I don't
shoe.
know why. It was just a name that we've had all along for him.
You know what?
Yeah.
I'm not even. We're not going to ask you to explain. I mean, if everybody up here had to explain their family nicknames, we'd be in here all night. We can explain it.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Well, I also want to say, Brennan Francois, we're always glad when you drop
Yes, sir.
in as well. So, and all of you, I know Brian McNeil, I sent you a quick comment and Mike gave you a shout out, but we're glad that you could drop in. And that's our brother-in-law.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're excited about that. So I know the time always goes so quickly when we're having fun, but if there was, if there's one thing that you want to express or convey to blended marriages out there, it doesn't have to be one. If you have more than one, that's fine. But if there's one thing that you want them to take away from this conversation, what would that be?
Now, before you answer that question, I just want to say to everybody who's watching and listening, you can drop a question in here, but your time is limited. So if you have one, go ahead and we'll get to one. If you have one, we'd love to have it. I'm sorry. Either one of you can go ahead and answer one of these questions. All right.
I think just like Mike said earlier, it's about patience, and it's not something that you can rush. It's taking its time, and you have to be grounded in something. And for us, we all know that we're grounded in the Lord's word, and so that's what helps us continue to mature in it. We don't do everything right. We say we're sorry when we are, and we continuously grow and learn. And so I think that's the biggest takeaway. Don't rely on everything you read, but learn from the Lord and other people that are working at it as well.
That's good.
You know what?
That's good.
Cheryl and Uncle Boot just made sure that nobody, if you have a question, it's too late. I'm sorry. It's just too late. So thank you, Cheryl, because I want to share this with you all right here. This is comment he just dropped in. Watching from afar, these two growing and sharing their space. We love that they make room for each other's growth. We love you, Uncle Boot and Aunt Janice. Uncle Boot, Aunt Janice, come on now. I mean, we got to close it out on that right there. That is, thank you so much for that.
Uncle Boot always comes in. He's my marriage mentor.
And he is. Those two have been married. Yes.
They're classy. Him and Aunt Janice, classy.
And we can always count on them to look at what good and true marriages look like. So we've had great examples of it as well.
Come on, Uncle Boot and Aunt Janice. Where are they located geographically?
They're Dallas, Texas.
Dallas?
Well, DeSoto, Texas. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, Cowboy fans, no doubt. That explains everything. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
And we okay.
So you guys have a Facebook page. Would you share a little bit of information, because you share some incredible, encouraging posts daily, and I want to make sure that if there's anyone that's watching tonight or watches this sometime later this week, they know how to find you?
Yes. Well, we put information of encouragement on our page, and it's just little notes. Sometimes it may be about marriages. Sometimes it may just be positive images for you. Sometimes it may be a prayer or anything like that. And I know sometimes people will look at it and think, okay, what did she do? Because she changes the name so many times, but it's Live, Love, and Marriage. And so that's what you can see. But sometimes I always still call it the Marriage Ministry. But just come out, check it, like the post, and I try to post something once a day. Hey, I may get up at 10, so it might be coming later in the day. Who knows? But life is still joyful, and that's all that we want to do. Just spread positivity all around and just look for the joy in life, and that's it.
Well, yeah, that's good. That's enough. And what is the name of that page one more time?
Live, Love, and Marriage.
Awesome.
Love it.
Love it. Y'all go check that out. Follow that.
Yes.
See what is posting, whatever time of the day it posts.
Yes.
And so the Currys are celebrating 44 years of marriage next month. They put that.
Incredible.
That is incredible.
Happy early anniversary.
We're chasing y'all. We'll never catch you, but we're gonna be chasing every year.
Great.
So yeah, that's awesome. So I think we're gonna get ready to close this thing out.
Yes. So I have
Thank you
one.
for inviting us.
Yes,
Absolutely.
we appreciate you so much for being here. And I had one announcement. If there's anyone that is interested in starting a marriage ministry for step families, Family Life actually has an event, a 2021 summit that's coming up October 14th and 15th. It's a 2-day summit, and it will be in Marietta, Georgia. So if you'd like that information, just message us and we'll share that information with you. The event that Mike spoke about at the top of the hour when we first got started is the Blended and Blessed event that Family Life puts on, and they also do that virtually. So it's been virtual for the last 2 years due to COVID, and it is held in April of every year. So as those things come up, we are happy to share. And if you all have questions about anything that relates to marriage in general or a blended marriage specifically, we'll reach out to London and Cheryl because they had such great advice to share. And so we are thankful to both of you for your time, for your wisdom, and for your willingness to be here with us tonight.
Yeah. So if y'all don't mind, as we always do, we're gonna pray and we'll get you on out of here. All right, Heavenly Father, we just come tonight just thanking you. Thank you for the time that we've had. Thank you for London and Cheryl and for everything they represent, God. Thank you for showing us that even though we all have pasts, we can come together and create a future that is better than anything that we could have imagined. So we just ask you can continue to bless them as you bless other couples, whether blended, whether first marriage. Just help us all to come together, to love better, God, to forgive quickly, to look past things that don't matter, and to focus on you as we come closer together in doing so. So we thank you tonight. We love you. We pray these and other blessings in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Okay, London and Cheryl, we appreciate y'all. We love y'all dearly,
guys.
as you know. So y'all have a great week, and everybody else join us. Remember, Marriage Shop, Black on Black, right? Black out, whatever we call them. Y'all need to get that. All right. But we're gonna close. We often, well, actually almost every time we close with this song written and performed by a good friend JC, and it's called Lifetime. And so y'all check that out, listen to it, and we'll see you next week. All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. It's your boy JC. I'm in the mood, love. Yeah. Lately I've been constantly thinking about you, babe. You drive me crazy, yeah. Girl, I want this. Got me all up in my feelings. Oh, what a feeling, yeah. I know the first time I laid eyes on you, you would be here forever. I'm not being arrogant, and I still can't take my eyes off you. 'Cause you made me better, so much better. I'm in the mood to love you for a lifetime. I'm in the mood to love you for a lifetime, baby. I love your kindness, I love your confidence. Ooh, you're the finest. So glad you're mine, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't wanna be with nobody else. Give me your love, that's all the wealth I need. Baby, you're priceless to me, yeah. To love you for a lifetime, I'm in the mood to love you for a lifetime, yeah. Whoa. Promise I'ma be around, I'ma always hold you down. Won't you come and hold me now? Won't you come and hold me now? I just got a new coupe, yeah, I know I got a roof, but I always keep it down with you, yeah. And I know they see, girl, you're my queen, and beauty speaks for itself loud and clear, yeah. So throw it in the air. It's the sweetest sound to follow my ear. And I want the world to know I'll love you forever. And that's a long time, babe. But I got time for you, baby. I'm in the mood. Ooh, for a lifetime. I'm in the mood to love you, yeah. For a lifetime, baby. Ooh, yeah. For a lifetime, oh, for a lifetime.